I surrender my life.
Well, again, welcome each of you here this morning. It's awesome. We have found that the students that do best have backup from their family, and that can come from spouses. How many spouses do we have here? Your husbands here. Anybody got? Lynn does. How many grandparents are here? Any grandparents? Grandparents are awesome, aren't they? I'm one of them, so I think grandparents are awesome. And we're just glad you're here. There's friends. There may be some kids, some here of students, but we're here because we have something in common. My wife does these PowerPoints for me. That's me on a really good day, I guess. I don't think I've had one of those recently, but we're here because we're on the same team. The team that wants your son, your loved one, your husband to become healed, to be free of addiction, to be a responsible, productive, godly man. Isn't that what we want? That's what I want. I want all of the training phase guys and emerging leaders and second-year students that I deal with, and to come out of Teen Challenge and live a godly life, to get a job and be a husband, be a father, pay their debts, and just go on with God, be a part of their church, be the man that most of them really want to be. They just have a hard time being it. Shared a Devo with some of the men on Saturday morning. That's part of my job. I do Saturday morning. And I talked about a student who I knew rather well a long time ago, and he said he tried to crawl out of the pit he was in many times, but just kind of on his own effort fell back in and fell a little deeper. And it wasn't until he met Jesus and until he had some help from others that he stayed on top, and he's served God actually for a long time, like 40 years. That would tell how old Pastor Bruce is, I guess. But it works, that's what I'm saying. It works, and it works over the long haul. Jesus said, "Then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And this verse has been on my mind for the last year a lot. Obviously, forever I've known that it's the truth about Jesus, that Jesus died for our sins, that we can be saved through Jesus, that He's our coming King. But there's something also about this, about knowing the truth. Knowing the truth about relationships, knowing the truth about family, knowing the truth about a bunch of things will set you free. So the main truth always is about Jesus. But this boundaries course that we're doing, and some of these things, there's other truth too. It's in the Bible, but it's not just about being saved by Jesus, but it's a bunch of other truth that we really need to know, and that we're going to learn about in 2016. So some of us have made a commitment for the entire year of 2016. One of my best friends is going to be this book here called Boundaries. And we would like you to buy one and it to be one of your friends too, and that you will read it once or twice or 3 times. If you read books like me, you want your own copy, because I write in it, I underline stuff. By the time it's done, it's, from my wife's point of view, I've wrecked it. Because it's covered in, and it's dog-eared, and it's pretty much done. When I'm done with the book, it's pretty much done. So get your own copy and dig into it and underline some stuff, or read it a second time, or share it with a spouse, or talk to your student about it, because there's some truth in this book that is able to set you free, and we want to do that. Here's a picture here. Is there something wrong with this picture? My son, my husband, is irresponsible and happy. And I'm responsible. I'm picking up all the mess. I'm paying all the bills. I'm doing all the stuff. And I'm really unhappy and maybe even a bit broke. Is there something wrong with that picture? I told Kevin I might use his example occasionally. Brother Kevin back there is my friend, and his student Jordan is in Thunder Bay and is going to be an emerging leader. And he would call me up, say, he sometimes calls me pastor because I was his pastor, and now we're friends. He still calls me pastor once in a while. He says, "Pastor, I can't sleep. I haven't slept for 2 nights. And you know what? His son Jordan was sleeping well. Smoke a little weed, party a little, and he was sleeping well. Wasn't bothering him too much that he'd bombed out in school. Wasn't bothering him too much that, from Kevin's point of view, things weren't going well. He was sleeping well at night, but my friend Kevin wasn't. And the question is there something wrong with that picture? Yes. Yes, there's something wrong with that picture. There's something seriously wrong with that picture. Any of you stayed up at night worried about your son and he was just doing fine? Or your daughter or whoever? There is something wrong with that picture. And we want to talk about that and see what could make a difference. Is it wrong to worry about your kids? Well, no. We worry about our kids because they're our kids. But for us to be the one paying all the consequences and them paying none, there's something wrong with that picture. And we're going to get to a bit more of that as we go along. When you're the one who helps him find a job and he's the one who gets fired, you're the one who, he gets in legal trouble and you're the one who bails him out. He doesn't pay his rent, so you do. You encourage him to get an education and tuition. Brother Jordan was set up for the best career ever, and at this point is doing something else, and he's probably doing what he needs to do right now, but Mom and Dad helped him with some stuff, big time, and he pretty much threw it in the toilet for a while there, and that was really stressful for Mom and Dad. Might have even made you angry a bit, did it?
You bet.
Yeah. Me too. I was his pastor. If you know Jordan, he's tips the scales at between 250 and a little higher maybe. Well, I knew him when he was 30 pounds. And he was in my junior youth group, and he heard all the devotions about do it right the first time. And he didn't. And now, though, he is. And partly due to the truth here that we're talking about this morning. So there is something wrong with that picture, and we need to look at what else to do with that. We're going to look at boundaries and consequences. They're both really good words. Boundaries and consequences are words that all parents and grandparents should know about, and all students should learn about as well, even if they have to learn them a little bit the hard way, but they do need to. Last time we did this a few years ago, I shared a story I'll share again because only a few of you are still here. But when do you start with consequences? My oldest son was about 7 years old at the time, and he had a friend about the same age. And they had this thing about they liked throwing rocks on my garage roof. I don't know why. I don't think they knew why either, but they just thought it was the thing to do. And their little arms were just wielding these rocks up on the roof. And I made it abundantly clear, no more rocks on the roof. I don't want rocks on the garage roof. There was nothing they didn't understand about that. But a day or two later, I went out to the backyard, looked at the garage, and more rocks on the roof. But also, there was one that didn't make it as high as the roof. One of their arms wasn't good enough to get it on the roof, but it was good enough to go through the window in the garage. So now I'm going, okay, we got another problem, because not only are you being disobedient about the rocks on the roof, now the garage window's is smashed. And as a father, now what do I do? Oh, it's okay, just don't throw any more rocks on the roof, is what I could have done, and maybe at times did, but this time I said, no, you know what? You guys are going to pay for the glass to put in that window. And I emptied my son's piggy bank out. I think it was $7.40 some cents. I took it all. I took every penny of it. Still wasn't enough to do the glass, but anyway, I took the whole thing. Said, you're going to pay for this glass. And I felt horrible, actually. I didn't need his $7, but it was the right thing to do, because for weeks after that, if we saw something damaged, I think we saw a garage door that was broken or something, and right away my 7-year-old son said, Dad, see that? I said, yeah. He said, whoever broke that should fix it, shouldn't they, Dad? I said, yes, sir, they should. And it was a cheap lesson. I think it was a $7 lesson in consequences that has paid off for my oldest son in a lot. I don't know how much. I would say tens of thousands of dollars by now, because he learned a lesson that only cost him $7. Or maybe later on it could have cost him 7 months in in jail, or it could have cost him his driver's license or something. So anyway, I thought there's a time to start with consequences. And of course, for all of our sons, we're not going to do it at 7 now because he's 33, so hopefully he's learned some things. But I have a 7-year-old grandson now. What kind of grandpa am I going to be? I don't know. I'm going to try. I'm not his dad, but I am his grandpa. So your student, your husband, boundaries are important at whatever age. And when you go into addiction, you cease to mature. So you may have a son, a husband who is 40 going on 14, just saying, might happen. So you might have to work on some boundaries. So as you can tell, I believe in boundaries. We have physical boundaries. We know that even more now when you go to cross the border or whatever, there are people who are concerned about what you might bring and who you might bring with you. And Brother Steve found out if you try and bring people across the border who don't have it all together, they get upset with you and so on. But borders are important. Well, boundaries are important too. They define where we are. And personal boundaries are a little bit harder to define, but we need to think about that. Sort of where do my responsibilities start and stop? What is me and what is somebody else? What should I be doing about this, and what shouldn't I? And I have a really good relationship with Brother Mike Friesen at the garage. 3 days a week I'm there, and Mike's there 5 days a week. I have yet to get there before he does, although I am the next one there though. At 7:45 I get there, and he's always there, and he takes his job very seriously. But here's an example of boundaries. One day I looked out and I walked by a really nice little car. My last name is Ford, so it was a nice little Ford car. And it looked good. There wasn't rust on it or anything. It looked really good. It looked like a nice car. One that I thought maybe we should be, sending to auction or whatever. And within a half an hour, it was in the scrap bay. And once it hits the scrap bay, I mean, it's not going to be on the road ever again. They're drilling holes in the bottom of the gas tank. They're cutting out the converter, and they use gentle tools there, like big long crowbars and torches. And that little Escort was just getting trashed, like done. It was going to be no good anymore. And I'm thinking, why did we do that? Well, I talked to Brother Mike for a moment, and he said, well, it's about 15 years old. It's got a ton of kilometers on it, and although it looks pretty good, the transmission's cooked. And I went, oh, okay. But you know what? That was actually not even a bit of my business. Shouldn't even been on my radar. Because I know that Brother Mike has been doing this longer than I've been at Teen Challenge, and he does the car stuff. So I don't worry at all now about where the cars go. Not at all. Not a bit. And you know what? Brother Mike's the other way. If a guy's not doing well, having trouble, not getting along with the other guys in the shop, he says, Pastor, would you mind talking to Brother Tyson this morning? Or would you mind talking to, Brother Chad this morning, or different ones? And of course I say, I would love to. Brother Tyson, come on, let's have a chat. You're not having a good day. Brother Mike thinks you're not doing well. What's happening? What's eating you? And because of those boundaries, Brother Mike and I have zero problems working together. None. That's nice, isn't it? I like that. I like to go to work and know that we just got it. We're good, and it's good for the students. So on a level of boundaries, you need to know where you start and stop. As a kid, as a parent, we say, okay, so who really should be doing the homework here? It's a mom, and that's often the case, but lots of dads help with homework. So, but what is mom's responsibility? What's the student's responsibility? How much do you help? My dad's an awesome guy, but we were in a rush one day to go somewhere, and he was just willing to give me all the answers and we'd be done. A little bit like cheating, I think, but that wasn't really the answer. And My dad's 88 and still an awesome guy and doing well, but what do you do? Where do you start? What does it mean to be responsible to others and not for others? Is kind of the question of boundaries, one of the ones we want to look at this morning. What do we do? And there's a passage of Scripture that really will help us out with this. Actually, I missed a part there. As parents, we had another issue. How many of you like waking people up in the morning who don't want to get up? After a while, it just gets a little annoying, right? Well, we were fairly annoyed. I have an older daughter who, I don't know if something's happening here, Jana Lynn, that I might not be in control of. So we were trying to drag these people out of bed, these kids out of bed. And at some point when they get to be a certain age, I'm thinking, is that really my responsibility? They all had part-time jobs at the Ford home. You go to school and you work part-time so you can do some of the things you want to do that the rest of the family can't afford or whatever. And they weren't getting up. And so again, like the rocks on the roof, we made it really clear that now you all have alarm clocks. You all know your Saturday job starts at 8 a.m. or whenever. So you need to put your alarm on and get up. And you know what? The first couple of times when the alarm went off and I was wide awake and they didn't get up, oh boy, it was hard for me to say, you know what? Not my responsibility. And yes, that daughter did lose a job. But she's a very responsible lady today. Very responsible. One of the best moms that I know. And she's going to be at our place tonight with my granddaughter. And I don't regret for a moment saying, you know what, Heather? When the alarm goes off, you need to get up. And I'm not going to wake you up. And if you lose your job, you're going to have to get another one. And at Teen Challenge, we're helping your student, your loved one, do some things. They will get up in the morning and go to work. Brother Dalton helps them with that most mornings, lots of mornings. And as you know, some of the guys aren't used to getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to work. That's a bit of a foreign idea. But they catch on at Teen Challenge eventually, and they do get up and they do go to work. You can be at Teen Challenge for less than a day. And you'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning going to work the next morning. Like, you don't have to be there for 24 hours. If you're going through withdrawals and so on, there's grace, of course, but there's some boundaries that we have. Now, this passage, I want to read it all to you. This is critical to what we're doing. Galatians 6, 1-6. Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you also might be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Each one should test his own actions, then he can take pride in himself without comparing himself to someone else, for each one should carry his own load. Anyone who receives instructions in the word must share all good things with his instructor. When you look at this, you say, so what do you mean? I should carry somebody else's burden, should only carry my own burden. It seems almost like there's a contradiction there. Well, there isn't, because these two words are much different. The word burden means too heavy for anyone to carry. Have you ever had a load put on you that you just couldn't carry yourself? Anybody? I have. We were on a missions trip together, Brother Kevin and I, and we ran into some stuff. Lots of stuff. It's a longer story than I'll tell this morning. But my friend, Brother Kevin, said, I will do anything, Pastor, to help you out but preach. I didn't want him to preach anyway, so it was okay. And he helped carry. We carried a burden that neither one of us could carry ourselves. But we carried it, and we were very successful on that trip. But I could not have carried it alone. So in this case, I needed someone to come and help me. I was getting burdened down. It wasn't going well. So we carry somebody else's responsibilities. We help them on those cases. But there's also another word they used here called load. That's your daily responsibilities. Have you ever watched ants work? They're incredible. They just get her done. They're just busy and they do what they got to do in preparation for the winter and so on. They just get it done. But this word is daily responsibilities, like getting up, going to work, paying your bills. If you break the law, face the consequences. Those kind of things, those we're not supposed to carry for somebody else. They need to face that themselves. They need to deal with that themselves. So you don't need to pay your son's rent should he decide to party instead of pay his rent. That's part of his load. Now the burden, there's burdens come along. I have a son who's gone through a divorce and there was some burdens there. And I helped him carry them, I believe, because it was too heavy for him to carry. Anybody had a family member go through a divorce? It's heavy, isn't it? Well, I couldn't just say to Tim, you know, whatever, you made your bed, you lie in it, just whatever. No. You help carry it. But then there was part of that was his load, part of his responsibility, that I had to say, you know what, we love you and care for you and we can help you out with this, but actually this part, it's up to you. You have to do that. And so boundaries is about knowing the difference. Because there are times when we should, as parents, rush in and help. For sure we should. And there's times, as a spouse, we should say, I'll do anything to help you with this. And at other times we should say, actually, I'm not bailing you out this time. I'm not finding you another job for you to get fired from. I'm not supplying you with money so that I'm wondering how I'm going to retire and you're high as a kite. You know that, so you know what I mean? Boundaries are really, really important stuff. And it's good. So a good boundary would be you say yes when others have real burdens. As a parent, as a Christian, when we see somebody that's burdened down and can't carry their load, we should be saying, how can I help you? But when it's something they should be doing and is their responsibility, we should be saying, you know what, I'd encourage you to get the job done. When you get the phone call, some of you have, been at Teen Challenge, I've given it my best try, Dad. I've been here for 3 days. And I've given it my absolute best. I've tried, and I just can't take it anymore. Like, these people are crazy. Like this is worse than jail, Mom. Like, you wouldn't believe it. I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They make me work here. Like, I can't just throw everything around my room because Brother Ben does room checks, and he gets all upset if my shoes are just laying somewhere. This is horrible. And you know, they said this was a Christian program. You wouldn't believe how Christian this is. There's Bibles everywhere. We got to do devotions every day. Come and help me out of here. I can't take it a moment longer. And you as mom, dad, or wife, and that's some of you spouses I know here have done this. You basically said, you know, honey, I feel for you. I realize it's a hard thing and everything, but I'm so glad that you're at Teen Challenge. I'm so glad that you made the awesome choice to go to Teen Challenge. And I know it's been 3 whole days already, but you know what? No, I'm not coming to pick you up. And if you leave, you're not welcome at our place. You can't move back in with us. So please stay. Please stay. And at the other end, somebody like Pastor Bruce is saying, I know you've given it 3 whole days, but let's think about this. How long were you in your addiction? Oh, Pastor, 10 years. I said, okay, so let's weigh this out now. So 10 years you were in this, and now you've given it 3 days here. 3 days. Are you thinking, I'm thinking this isn't quite, there's something wrong with this picture too? Like, how about at least 3 months, or think a little longer. And so boundaries are like that. And most of you that are here are already doing some of that. Anybody got one of those phone calls, said, you need to come get me? Anybody? Yeah, if you got it, yeah. And because you're here today and probably said, we love you and we're not coming to pick you up, you had a boundary. So you got a boundary. And there might be a few more you need to put in action, but you have boundaries and they work because your son, husband, loved one is still here. And probably after the initial adjustment and shock of the different life they're living, they might even say when they come here in a few minutes that things are going fairly well and that God is blessing their life. And most days they feel that way. Some days they don't, but all of us have some of those days. I do anyway. No is a wonderful word. That's what I tried to teach my daughters about young men that came to the door. But no, I tried to give them jerk training. Just say no to those people. But anyway, I have a couple of pretty good son-in-laws, so I guess it's all right. So you know that that's a wonderful word that you have to use sometimes. And you can say it nicely, but you can say it assertively. And after a while, see, before, no meant if you hassle them long enough, if you plead with them enough, if you tell them enough horror stories, eventually they'll say yes. So they need to know that actually when you say, no, I'm not picking you up, I'm not picking you up. Not today, not tomorrow, and not next week. And they may leave and come knocking on your door, and this is the harder one yet. They have to learn that actually when I said, no, you're not moving back in here, actually you're not. You would need to find your own place to stay. And the guys have left for a day or two sometimes, and then phone up back to Teen Challenge and said, you know what, I think I'd like to be back in the program. Because somebody's had boundaries and said, no, we're not going to rent you a new apartment because you lost the other one. No, you're not moving into our basement. You've faced some of those consequences, and they are still there. So facing consequences changes lives. And don't delay your loved one from recovery by not allowing them to face some of the consequences that they need to face. Because you can delay it. Do you want to deal with rocks in the garage roof, or do you want to deal with 2 years less a day? Do you want to deal with smoking weed, or do you want to deal with crack cocaine? Do you want to deal with losing a job, or do you want to deal with other when do you want to deal with it? When do you want to draw the line? Many of the actual drug programs are astonished that we as a discipleship program draw the line. We're not a drug program, we're a discipleship program. But they're astonished when they go to their POs and say, you know what, Teen Challenge won't even let me smoke cigarettes. Like what? How could this be? And we get calls from some of them, seriously guys, they can't smoke cigarettes at your place? Yeah, seriously they can't. We draw the line at a different place. So where are you going to draw the line? You know, just stay out of trouble and live in my basement and smoke weed all your life and play video games? Or you know, where are you going to draw the line? What boundary are you going to have? And we would say, keep it up a little higher. And because if you don't, this little diagram is about, so something happens, your son gets a job, gets a paycheck. That's always great. Do you like paychecks? I like paychecks. They're awesome. Get paychecks. And you can go to those places where they'll give you instant cash. They'll give you most of it, not all of it, but they'll give you cash. And you got $500, you got $1,000 in your pocket. Yahoo! The party's about to happen. Well, I won't spend it all. I'll have a few beers and I'll just have a bit of fun with my friends. And but then a week or so later, when the funds are down, either down or gone, a funny thing happens. Somebody wants money for the rent on the apartment you're living in, or your cell phone bill or whatever, and you're about to get ousted out, but you can always phone up Mom. Mom, you wouldn't believe what happened. I got paid, and I know I was saving money for the rent, but and they'll give you any kind of story you want to hear or don't want to hear, and you can come along and say, "Oh, you poor dear, I'm going to help you out. I'll pay the rent this month." So, no consequences. Another paycheck comes. Well, I'm not gonna go quite the same this time. I'm just gonna have a few beers or whatever. I'm just gonna, well, maybe just a couple of lines of cocaine. But you know what? There was no consequences last time. And there probably isn't gonna be this time, or is there? So you're actually helping keep that going. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Or are you gonna clearly say, you know what? Mom and Dad have helped you out. We've helped you out at times when we probably shouldn't have. But you need to know, and it's only fair that you do this, you need to know that you have a new place, you have a job, and I am never again going to pay your rent. I'm just telling you this right up. You're sober, I'm sober, we're talking about this. This is how it's going to be. There is a boundary now. I am not bailing you out of things that are your responsibility. And when that time comes, you get the phone call, but Mom, Dad, we love you, we care for you, and you are going to have to find another place to stay, I guess. It's not going to be here. And you know what? You'll allow them to face the consequences. They might spend a night at the Shalom Mission or somewhere. And I wouldn't want my son to be there, actually. But if he was there for a night or two and learned something that changed his life, maybe a good thing, eh? So this year, we're going to look at stuff like this. We're going to look at things like setting boundaries and implementing boundaries, and what are walls and what are boundaries with gates, and a whole bunch of stuff that I think is going to be fun to look at, and it's going to be life-giving to you. And you'll be not in a spot where your student or whoever is having a great time and you're sleepless, angry, and broke. It'll be you'll be able to sleep at night, and they might be sleepless because it's a little cold where they're living tonight. They'll come back to Teen Challenge, or they'll come to Teen Challenge, and they will get things together. So we're on a team, like I started out with. You're the team. First of all, God wants your son, your husband, your loved one to do well, for sure. Don't you like being on a team with God? That's pretty good, because He's always got it together and strong. So you got that team. You've got, as parents or a spouse, there's that part of the team. And there's the staff of Teen Challenge that really, really want your student to do well. I can tell you that. I know all the staff members quite well. I'm the sort of pastor now for staff and students in some way. I know the hearts of our staff, and our staff are there because they love students and they want them to succeed. So it's a pretty decent team. I don't know of any other team that could do more for your son or your student than this team. God, you, and us. And so I'm looking forward to doing that all this year and beyond.